Sir Ed Davey, leader of the Liberal Democrats, doesn't really need any introduction, is with us now. You're worried about car thefts?
Yeah, we've done some freedom of information requests of police forces across the country, and they show that over 7 out of 10 car thefts aren't attended by police. When we've been knocking on doors in the run-up to these elections, people are saying they're concerned about the NHS, cost of living, the environment, but they've also been raising crime with us, car thefts, burglaries, antisocial behaviour, and they feel that they don't have the community police officers in their neighbourhoods, and they feel that a lot of crimes they report just go uninvestigated. And these figures show that's absolutely true when it comes to car theft.
And it affects all of us, because even if your car's not been pinched, then your car insurance is still going up. Mine went up 15% this year.
Absolutely right, Kay. I mean, car insurance is going through the roof.
It is.
Just another aspect of cost of living. And when car thefts and burglaries aren't investigated and the crime solved, what that means is your house insurance, your car insurance goes up and makes the cost of living worse, as well as, frankly, the trauma. You know, when people lose their car, that's bad enough. And then when they feel that the police aren't able to investigate. So one of the things that Liberal Democrats are calling for today is to make sure there's a massive increase in detectives. What's really interesting when you dig down into what the Conservatives have failed to do, they've failed to recruit enough detectives. In fact, the shortage of detectives has been getting worse in recent times. The experts tell us we've probably got a shortage across the whole of the country of 7,000 detectives. And without those trained people, we're not going to solve car thefts, we're not going to solve burglaries, and we're not going to get the crime rate down.
Well, I've got you face to face. Let's sort this post office thing out once and for all. Alan Bates isn't very happy with you. He says he took offence to your suggestion that the government had an arm's-length relationship with the post office. What would you say in response?
Well, I apologised to him already. What happened was I was in office for 11 days and was asked whether I would meet him, and I was told that the tradition had been that we didn't meet people because the post office is run by the post office executives and it was an arm's-length relationship, as he said. And then he wrote back to me and the officials told me the letter was pretty tough, which it was, as we heard at the inquiry, and I agreed that I should meet him. And so I was actually the first post office minister to meet him. He was an amazing guy, as everyone now knows, and I put his concerns to post office executives. His main concern, as we saw in the drama, as we've seen in the inquiry, and indeed as we saw in the 2019 High Court case, was the post office was saying there was no remote access to the Horizon system, and therefore the sub-postmaster was responsible for the system. And he was claiming that couldn't be the case. So I put that very important IT issue to post office executives and to officials, and they said, no, there was no remote access at all. Now, Kay, what's so shocking, and this has come out through the inquiry, is that they knew all along there was remote access. So they must have lied to me, to previous ministers, to ministers after me, and they lied not just to the sub-postmasters, who the victims is, but to the courts and the judges and the lawyers. So this was lies on an industrial scale, and why I actually support people who say that the people who are responsible for this must be held to account, and if that means them being taken to court and going to prison, so be it.
But if you hadn't kept the post office at arm's length, or if they hadn't kept you at arm's length, potentially none of this would have happened.
Well, the arm's length relationship, which has been there for a long time, needs to be questioned too. One of the things I'm concerned about
Why didn't you question it at the time?
Well, I didn't realise it was a problem, if I'm honest with you, but we now see...
because it was at arm's length.
Well, indeed, but, you know, I had inherited this. It's been the case for decades, as far as I can see, and what I'm doing...
You've never been one to follow the pack, though, Minister.
Well,
as a minister.
I was wanting to change the post office management, but not because of this. I wasn't aware of this problem. I didn't think the post office was as well managed as it should be.
So why weren't you keeping more of an eye on them?
Well, we were trying to reform the post office because the issue that I was facing was post offices closing up and down the country. But the Horizon system, which is the scandal, which is a huge scandal, was hardly raised with me at all, besides Mr. Bates. What I did was I tried to make sure that his questions were answered. Unfortunately, I was lied to.
Yeah, but given that you were unhappy with those that were running the post office, why didn't you were responsible for the post office, as far as the country is concerned, why weren't you keeping a closer eye on them?
Well, I asked them the questions that Mr Bates was asking. That was quite the right thing to do. I pushed them on it. And I'm afraid every time we had a letter in from an MP, we didn't have that very
Get them in your office.
Well,
you were the boss.
Well, we asked them the questions. Unfortunately, we were lied to. And when people lie on such an industrial scale, Kay, it's very difficult. And what we saw in courts, in judges up and down the country, they were lied to, even they were having detailed analysis of the evidence. And what is absolutely shocking...
What are you sorry for?
Well, I'm sorry for two things. I'm sorry that I didn't see Mr Bates after his first letter. It took me 5 months to see him, although I was the first Post Office Minister to see him. And I'm sorry that I didn't see through the lies. I mean, the lies...
Are you sorry that you were not more inquisitive?
Well, I asked the questions. To be fair to me...
You've already said, Sir Ed, this morning that you didn't like the way it was being run, the Post Office.
Yeah, but that's for other issues. Let me take you through them.
Yeah.
We wanted to make sure, because I think the Post Office serves a good, interesting and important role in communities. And what was happening was they were closing down. And we wanted to make sure that didn't happen, because I've got huge respect for sub-postmasters.
What was happening was that they were lying through their teeth and people were taking their own lives.
Well, you're right, they were lying.
And you were responsible for the Post Office at that time.
To be fair to me and to other ministers, it was run at arm's length, and that's what's got to change. One of the things that I think is so important from all this is we need...
Why weren't you saying that at the time?
Well, because I didn't realise at the time, because I didn't know this was a scandal at the time.
That's because you weren't working closely enough with them.
Well, the system was wrong. The system is broken, and one of the things...
And as the minister, you could have changed that.
Well, I didn't realise it was broken at the time.
Because you were keeping them at arm's length.
Well, because that was the system. And what I'd like to see, Kay, and I think it's really important...
Are you embarrassed?
What I'd really like to see, Kay, and this is a very, very important point, is not just the important compensation for Post Office postmasters...
Going back to your role at the time, when you wouldn't initially speak to... It's all very important. Alan Bates is not happy with you at all. Are you embarrassed, looking back, that you didn't do more?
Well, I'm not actually, but I'm sorry that I didn't see through the lies. I really am sorry I didn't see through the lies. But I think, like all of the ministers...
You don't think you have anything to be embarrassed about?
Well, I didn't see through the lies, and I'm sorry about that. It really is very frustrating that I was lied to, ministers from other political parties were lied to, and the judges and courts, and, of course, above all, the sub-postmasters were lied to. And what we have to do through the inquiry is understand what happened. And to your point about the arm's-length issue, that system has to go. It's not acceptable that we have arm's-length bodies in not just the Post Office,
14 years ago.
Indeed. And why hasn't the government acted more quickly?
Why didn't you act at the time?
Well, I did. I saw Mr Bates, and I...
Only after he pressed you?
Yeah, and I was the first Post Office Minister to see him, to be fair, Kay. And having seen him, I put his questions. And this is the problem that needs to be sorted out, the lies on an industrial scale. And what we need to do...
And you have no embarrassment whatsoever about the way that you behaved at the time?
Well, I've said I'm sorry that I didn't see...
I'm asking you, were you embarrassed about the way you behaved?
Well, of course, when you're sorry, you wish you'd done something, and therefore you feel that you could have gone... wish you'd gone further.
You were embarrassed, looking back?
Well, yes, I feel that as someone who's sorry for not seeing through the lies and sorry for not seeing Alan Bates, I'm sure other people feel that as well. We wish we'd got to the bottom of this. But unfortunately, it took the Fujitsu whistleblower, the insider Fujitsu, to come forward. They came forward in 2015, years after I left office, and it was only in 2015 that the lies of the Post Office were exposed.
And if you'd been more inquisitive at the time, they may well have come to light earlier.
Regrettably, there was no whistleblower. It took the whistleblower, the Fujitsu insider, to show that the Post Office were lying, because the Post Office lied to many, many people. When we got that Fujitsu insider, the BBC did the Panorama programme, which exposed the lies in 2015. And here's the thing, which it hasn't had the attention, Kay, is that then it took another 4 years before we saw the High Court case where the postmasters were exonerated.
OK, we're out of time, so we are going to have to leave it there. We're going off there, but thank you for being so honest and open in your responses. I really do appreciate it.